Let's continue with our chapter. Always remember, the tendency of an object to remain in its existing state is called its inertia. So this is basically the same definition of inertia that we learned earlier, in which whatever state the object is in, it will continue to remain in that state for a certain amount of time. So this existing state could be if the body is in motion or if it's at rest. This is why an object in stationary state, that is, when the state of the body is at rest, remains in the same state, and an object in motion, that is, it keeps on moving, remains in the state of motion in the absence of an external force. So this means that whatever body, if it is in motion, it will continue to be in motion, that is, it will continue to keep moving until and unless an external force is applied. And if the body is at rest, it will continue to remain at rest unless and until an external force is applied. For example, if you take a piece of paper and you keep it on the table, it will remain there unless and until an external force is applied. And this external force could be if you pick it up. Or if you take a ball and you throw it on the table, it will continue to keep moving until an external force is applied. So until you stop it with your hand, or if a frictional force comes upon it. There are types of inertia. There is inertia of the state of rest, inertia of motion, and directional inertia. So these are the three types of inertia, and they basically tell us of the different existing states of motion of the body. So if the body is at rest initially, then it will have inertia of the state of rest. If it is in motion, it will have inertia of motion. So let us see all these three types of inertias. The first one is inertia of state of rest. An object in the state of rest cannot change its state of rest due to its inherent property. This property is called the inertia of state of rest. So this is the example of the paper kept on the table, that once you keep an object on the table, it will not move until and unless you put the pressure or an external force is applied, and that is causing it to move. Until and unless an external force is applied, it will not move and it will stay in the same place. Next one is inertia of motion. The inherent property of an object due to which its state of motion cannot change is called its inertia of motion. This is the example of the ball. When you roll a ball on the table, it will continue to keep on rolling until and unless you stop it with your hand, or if frictional force acts on it and causes it to stop. So until and unless an external force is acting, it will continue to be in motion, and this is inertia of motion. Another example given here is of a revolving electric fan, which continues to revolve even after it is switched off. So, if you must have noticed the fan in your room or classroom, once you switch off, the blades of the fan keep on rotating for a certain amount of time, and slowly it will decrease its speed and finally come to the rest. So why does this happen? Because as soon as you switch off the switch of the fan, there is no electricity supplying it, so it should stop immediately. But this does not happen because the blades of the fan are in inertia of motion. Therefore, they will continue to revolve for a certain amount of time and finally come to a rest. Passengers sitting in the running bus get a jerk in the forward direction if the bus suddenly stops. And this we all must have noticed when we are sitting in a bus or car. If the bus or car suddenly stops when it is moving, then our body and our head is moved in the forward direction. That is, we get a jerk because our body was in the inertia of motion because of the bus or the car we were sitting in. And therefore, when the bus comes to a rest suddenly, our body, because it is in the inertia of motion, will be jerked in the forward direction. The third type of inertia is directional inertia. So what is this? This inherent property of an object due to which the object cannot change the direction of its motion is called directional inertia. So if you take the example of the ball, when you roll it on the table, it will continue to roll in the direction that you threw it. That is, it will move in a straight line unless and until you push it from the side, that will cause it to change the direction. So until an external force is applied on the ball, It will not change its direction. Let's see the example given here. For example, if a vehicle in motion along a straight line suddenly turns, the passengers sitting in it are thrown opposite to the direction of the turning. So if you are sitting in the car and it is moving in a straight line and suddenly the driver takes a very steep turn, then you must have noticed when you are sitting in the back seat, if the driver takes a left turn, your body will move to the right side. So you get a jerk on the opposite direction as the turn taken by the driver. So this is directional inertia, because when the turn is taking place, our body is in a directional inertia. That is, because we were going in the straight direction, because of the sudden turn, our body is pushed towards the opposite direction. Activity 3. Take some sharp pointed nails and push them into a wooden plank by hammering on their heads. So let us take this as the wooden plank, and these are the nails that are commonly used by carpenters. So in this nail you have this portion that is called the head of the nail, and we have this pointed portion. So if you keep the pointed portion towards the plank and you hammer on their head, then the nail will easily go into the plank. Now take a nail and hold it with its head on the plank and hammer it down from the pointed end. Now if you keep it in the opposite direction, where the head of the nail is towards the plank and the pointed edge is upwards, and you hammer on the pointed nail, you will observe that this nail now does not go easily into the plank, and sometimes even this pointed nail may get bent. When pressing the drawing pins into a drawing board, they get into the board easily. By applying a force using the thumb, one can push the pins into the board. So now you must have noticed, similar to these pins, you also get drawing pins, which are similar looking to these nails. But these drawing pins are used for drawing boards and not hard wooden planks. So those drawing pins, when you easily push your force with using your thumb only, the drawing pins go easily into the board, just by applying the force of the thumb. On the contrary, while pressing ordinary pins with the thumb may get hurt. So even though you use the thumb with the drawing pins, if you use your thumb to put these nails into the wooden plank, you will not be able to do that, no matter the amount of force you use. And you may even hurt your thumb by trying this. So what do we realize by this activity is that it is easier to push the pin inside the plank or the drawing board if the pointed edge is towards the plank. And also the thickness of this plank and how hard it is depends on the amount of force required. So that is why we were able to push the drawing pin with just our thumb. But for putting these nails into the wooden plank, we need to hammer it down using a hammer. Use your brain power. It is easy to cut vegetables and fruits with a sharp knife. A blunt knife does not work here. A blunt knife is a knife which was earlier sharp but is not sharp anymore because of repetitive use. So you must have observed, when you cut your vegetables and fruits, a sharp knife works better and you can cut it more smoothly when you use a sharp knife. Whereas when you use a blunt knife, you have to put more force in cutting the fruits or vegetables. So why does this happen? It is because the sharp knife has a thinner edge and therefore we use lesser amount of pressure to cut it. But let's explain this phenomena using physics. The force exerted perpendicularly on a unit area is called pressure. So this is the definition of pressure, in which it is nothing but the force exerted perpendicularly on a unit area. And we use that same pressure while cutting fruits and vegetables also, because we place the knife at a perpendicular angle to the surface of the fruits and vegetables. So pressure is equal to force upon the area on which the force is applied. So this is a very important formula and it tells us the factors that pressure depends on. It depends on the force applied and it also depends on the area on which the force is applied. And since area is in the denominator's position, for a constant force, pressure is inversely proportional to area. So lesser the area, more the pressure. Therefore, for a given amount of force, lesser area will produce more pressure. Therefore, a sharp knife was working better than the blunt knife because the sharp knife has a thinner edge and therefore the area is also decreased. Because the area is less, for the same amount of force, we are getting more pressure and therefore it becomes easier to cut fruits and vegetables. Presently, we are considering only the force acting on an area in a direction perpendicular to it. So, whenever you take into consideration about pressure, we have to consider the force that is acting perpendicular to it. The unit of pressure. SI unit of force is Newton and the area is measured in meter square. So these are the SI units for force and area, which is Newton and meter square. And because pressure is force upon area, therefore the SI unit of pressure would be Newton upon meter square. And this Newton upon meter square is also known as Pascal. In atmospheric science, the unit of pressure is bar and we take 1 bar is equal to 10 raised to 5 Pascal. So because usually pressure is very high, that is why we take a unit called as bar. And we get this bar by taking 1 bar is equal to 10 raised to 5 Pascal. And pressure is a scalar quantity. How do we come to know this? Since we know that there are two types of quantities, scalar and vector. So the scalar and vector both depend on the amount, that is the magnitude of force applied. But vector quantities additionally depend on the direction of motion as well. But we know that all the direction for pressure is taken perpendicularly. Therefore, there is no directional component when we take into account pressure. Therefore, it is just a scalar quantity that only depends on the magnitude of pressure. If area increases, pressure reduces for the same force, and if the area decreases, the pressure increases for the same force. So, we have seen this earlier when we take this formula. For a given amount of force, that is when the force is constant, since pressure and area are inversely proportional, therefore a lesser amount of area will give you a more pressure, whereas a more area will give you lesser pressure. For example, due to natural adaptation, the bottom surface of camel's feet are broad. So natural adaptation is when the body of an animal changes over time due to the changes in the environment. So we have observed that the camel's feet have become very broad. Hence the camel's weight is exerted on a large area and the pressure on the sand is reduced. So because camels live in the desert and because they have to walk on sand a lot, therefore their feet have become broad so that the entire weight of the camel can be distributed equally on the broad feet and the pressure on the sand will be less. That is why camel's feet do not penetrate into the sand and it becomes easy to walk. So when we walk on sand, our feet goes inside the sand and it becomes difficult to walk. But since camel's feet are broad, they have a very large area so that their weight is distributed equally. Because from this formula we have seen that if the area would be larger, the pressure would be less. So therefore, because of the less pressure, the weight exerted is equally distributed, and because of the less pressure, the feet do not penetrate into the sand like how it does for us. Therefore, camel can easily walk on the sand. Pressure on solids. Air pressure is exerted on all the objects kept in air. So, because we are living in the Earth's environment, our environment has air all around us. Therefore, no matter where we are, we always have air pressure that is exerted on all the objects that are present in the Earth's atmosphere. When a weight is kept on a solid, pressure is exerted on it. So, for example, let us take this red box, and on top of the red box, we will keep a blue cube. So, the weight of this blue cube will be exerting pressure on the red box. This pressure depends on the value of the weight and the contact area between the two. So the pressure exerted by the cube on the box would be dependent on two things. One would be the weight of the cube, and the second would be the contact area, that is how much area of the box is covered by the cube. So both of these things will tell us the pressure exerted by the cube on the box. Continue. Try this. Do the activity as depicted in the figure. What is seen? So in this figure we can see that a wooden plank is placed in between two pillars, and on the pillar in the first case there are 4 books kept horizontally on the table, and in the second case they are stacked on top of each other vertically. The difference that we see is, even though the books are the same, in the first case the plank is in the same shape and it is maintaining its shape, but in the second case, because of the weight of the books, the plank has bent. So why does this happen? Why is it that in this case, even though the books have the same weight, the plank is bent? Because in the second case the pressure is more, because the surface area is less. And if you remember our formula, pressure is equal to force upon the area. So in both these cases the force is the same, because the weight of the books is the same. But the pressure would be more in the second case because the surface area is decreased. And because the surface area is in the denominator, less surface area would give you more pressure. So for the same amount of force, we are getting more pressure in the second case, and that is why the plank is bent. Use your brain power. You must have seen a vegetable vendor carrying a basket on her head. So you must have seen a lady who sells vegetables usually carries a basket filled with vegetables on her head. She keeps a twisted piece of cloth on the head below the basket. How does it help? So when she is carrying the vegetable basket, the basket is very heavy because there are many vegetables filled in it, and she keeps a twisted piece of cloth on her head. So the cloth is twisted and she keeps it on her head, on top of which she keeps her basket. So why does she keep this cloth under the basket? It is because to increase the surface area. Because if she would keep just the basket, only one point would be on her head and all the pressure would be exerted on that point. But if she keeps this cloth, the surface area increases and the pressure would be distributed equally. Because of that, she will not feel the weight of the basket as much as she would feel if she would keep just the basket. We cannot stand at one place for a long time. How can we sleep on a place for 8 and odd hours? So when you stand on one place, you will notice that your legs get tired. But when you sleep on the bed horizontally, you come to know that you can sleep for a lot of amount of time without feeling tired or feeling the pressure of your body. It is because when you stand, the surface area covered by your feet is very small, and therefore the entire weight of the body is exerted on that small surface area, and because of that there is more pressure. Whereas when you sleep, your whole body surface area is on the bed, and because of that all your weight is distributed equally on more surface area. Therefore you do not get tired when you sleep, whereas you will get tired easily when you stand. For skiing on ice, why are long flat skis used? So here again we use the same example on saying the skiing. When you ski, you must have noticed the blades on the shoes are long and flat. So because they are flat, the entire weight of your body will be distributed on that flat surface, and therefore it won't be distributed at a single point, and therefore when you ski, no matter how heavy you are, the ice will not break. Earlier we had studied the pressure of solids, so now let us see the pressure of liquids. Try this. Activity 1. Take a plastic bottle and take a 10 cm long piece of glass tube on which a rubber balloon can be fitted. So like this, we have to take a plastic bottle and we take a 10 cm glass tube on which this rubber balloon can be fitted. Warm up one end of the glass tube and gently push it into the bottle at about 5 cm from the bottom. So here at around 5 cm from the bottom, we will push this glass tube inside this bottle by heating it so that we can easily push the glass tube in the bottle. To avoid water leakage, apply molten wax on the side of the glass tube. So if the hole created is larger, the water may fall out. Therefore, we will apply the wax around this tube so that it can be easily sealed. Now fill water slowly in the bottle and see how the balloon inflates. When you fill water into this bottle, you will realize that the water slowly enters this glass tube and starts filling into the balloon, and therefore the balloon enlarges in size, that is, it inflates. What is observed? The pressure of the water acts on the side of the bottle as well. So by this experiment we can conclude that when you pour the water inside this bottle, even though the water is contained in the bottle, it is exerting a pressure on the walls of the bottle, and therefore because we created a hole in this bottle, we observed that the pressure was entering the balloon and inflating it. Activity 2. Take a plastic bottle, pierce it with a thick needle at points 1, 2 and 3 as shown in the figure. So now we will take another bottle and we will pierce it, that is, we will make a hole in it with a needle at 3 points 1, 2 and 3 as it is shown in this figure. Fill water in the bottle up to the full height. So here we have filled the water up to the full height of the bottle, and you have to cover all these 3 points. Water jets will be seen emerging and projecting out. So here we can see that because we have created hole in this bottle, water jets are coming out of the bottle as it is seen in this figure. The water jet emerging from the hole at the top will fall closest to the bottle. So here this hole, that is hole number 3, is right on top, and the water jet falls very close to the bottle as compared to 1 and 2. The one hole which is right at the bottom pushes the jet most furthest from the bottle. The jet from the lowest pole falls furthest from the bottle, that is this hole 1. Also, jets coming out from the 2 holes at the same level fall at the same distance from the bottle. So if at this distance you create another hole 1 over here, you will observe that the distance that was created by this water jet is the same distance that will also come out because of this other hole at the same level. What is understood from this? At any one level, the liquid pressure is the same. Also, the pressure increases as the depth of the liquid increases. So by this experiment, we can conclude that as you go higher on the bottle, the hole and the water created by it is decreasing in pressure. But the lower holes have more water pressure, therefore the water ejected goes furthest from it. So therefore, at any one level, the pressure would be same, but it would be more as compared to a level on top of it. So the 2 main points that we conclude from this experiment is that at any one level the liquid pressure is the same. That is the first point. And the second point is that the pressure increases as the depth of the liquid increases. Now we studied about the pressure exerted by solids and liquids. But now let us study the pressure exerted by gas. If a balloon is inflated by filling air by mouth, it inflates on all sides. So when you are blowing balloons for a birthday party, you must have noticed that when you blow inside the balloon, the air pressure that is created in it acts on all the sides at the same time and it inflates the balloon, that is, the balloon increases in size equally on all the sides. If a pinhole is created in the balloon, air leaks out and the balloon does not inflate fully. So if the balloon you are blowing has a hole in it, no matter how much pressure you put in it, the balloon will not inflate because the air is leaking out from the hole. It is realized that like a liquid, gas also exerts pressure on the wall of the container in which it is enclosed. So when we had seen in the liquid example, when we filled the liquid inside the bottle, we observed that when the bottle water was going into the balloon, it inflated all the sides of the balloon equally, because the liquid water was exerting the pressure on the walls of the balloon. And similarly, this is also seen with gases, and therefore the air that we blow inside the balloon acts on all the walls of the balloon equally. All gases and liquids have a common name called fluid. So because gases and liquids are very similar, they are called as fluid. Fluids in a container exert pressure from within, on the walls and the bottom of the container. So when there is a fluid inside a container, it will exert its pressure on all the walls of the container and also the bottom. A fluid enclosed in a container exerts its pressure equally in all directions at a point within the fluid. So whenever you enclose it, that is, whenever you put a fluid and close it in a container, it will exert its pressure in all directions and at equal amount in any point that you see within the container. Now let us see what is atmospheric pressure. Air surrounds the earth from all sides. So because we are living on earth, the earth is surrounded by an atmosphere filled with air. So no matter where on earth we are, we will be surrounded by an atmosphere filled with air. Therefore, we will always be under the air pressure of the earth's atmosphere. This layer of air is called the atmosphere. The atmosphere exists to about 16 kilometers in height. So when you stand on the surface of the earth on ground, if you calculate 16 kilometers on top of you, that much height is to where the atmosphere exists. So the earth is covered by a layer of atmosphere, and this layer is present in about 16 kilometers in height. It further extends up to about 400 kilometers in a very dilute form. So after the 16 kilometers in height, there is about 400 kilometers of very dilute air. Dilute is very thin air. The pressure created due to air is called as atmospheric pressure. So wherever we are present on earth, because of this layer of atmosphere, there is a pressure that is created on us, and this is called as atmospheric pressure. Imagine that a very long hollow cylinder of unit cross-sectional area is standing on the surface of the earth. So imagine that this is the surface of the earth, and on top of it is a hollow cylinder, that is a cylinder which is empty from inside, and we have placed this on the surface of the earth, and this contains air. Weight of this air is the force applied in the direction of the center of the earth. So all this air would be force that is applied in the direction of the center, that is towards the earth. This means that atmospheric pressure is the ratio of its weight divided by the air area of the surface. So because earlier we had studied that pressure is equal to force upon surface area, so here the atmospheric pressure would be its weight. So this would tell us the force and upon the area of the surface. So here we can see that they have placed a cylinder on the surface of the earth, and all this air, it's more concentrated at the lower region, and because of this it creates a pressure towards the center of the earth. And we can calculate this by taking the weight of all this pressure, weight of all this air upon the area of the cylinder. The air pressure at sea level is called 1 atmospheric pressure. So they have given this standard value, and if you are present at sea level, over there the pressure would be 1 atmospheric pressure. Air pressure decreases as one goes up in height from sea level. So as you can see here, as we go up on top of the earth's surface, we can see the air particles are diluted. So because of this, the pressure exerted by these particles also decreases. Therefore, they are telling us that air pressure decreases as one goes up in height from the sea level.